P Cubed podcast.
Does it look like I'm looking at the camera right now?
Sure.
Yeah. Center.
Podcasting like Podturkin.
Oh.
We're becoming more professional.
Before we get there, all right. What is going on, sport fans? Welcome into the P Cubed podcast. My name is Thomas Barrett, and I'm here with my good buddies Nate Hull and Brian Zanello. We're so glad that you're here with us while we have our weekly look at the Seattle sports landscape. And we sure would enjoy to have you back each and every week. So make sure you subscribe and hit that little tick notification box on your preferred podcast platform. Currently, you can find us on Spotify and YouTube, and we'll keep you up to date as we get listed on small platforms. We really want this to be a discussion. So if you have any feedback or some questions for us, you can email us at p3sportspod@gmail.com. And we'll do our best to get back to you or potentially devote some time in the next episode to your question. With all that housekeeping out of the way, grab a bev and buckle up. Nate, what's on the agenda this week?
Hello, everyone. Back to my secretary duties for this week. As Thomas said, we have an email address, p3sportspod@gmail.com. Email us in a random question. You might be featured at the end of the show. We're going to do, as always, sportspredictions.net recaps, Brian's best and worst picks. We will recap our Hawks picks and have some Hawks talk about the Munich game. I think we're all excited about that. We're going to continue on with our P3 highlight. We're going to feature Brian this week. Last week, we featured Thomas. We will talk a little bit about some baseball. Got some hot stove heating up. We're excited. Some things came through today that we want to talk about. Also going to talk about some of the rule changes. I think we have some differing opinions on that. As always, Tyson Zone, and then we'll finish with the question of the week. So, Brian, how did you do, sportspredictions.net?
Oh, I did okay in college football, and I did okay in the NFL this week. NBA was a different story. We'll get to that later. College basketball started last week as well. Picked 2 games, went 2-0. And as of this taping, we're actually 3-0 because we picked Michigan State to cover against Kentucky, and not only did they cover, they won in double overtime. So that was a good win. We're 3-0. As
What'd you
of
pick
this
in the Gonzaga
taping,
game? Gonzaga Michigan State game.
I picked Gonzaga to win, but not to cover,
Ooh.
which is exactly what happened. Gonzaga was actually down by 12 at halftime, or down by 12 early in the second half, not at halftime. They were down by 8 at halftime, down by 12 early in the second half, came back and won by 1 point. They finally figured out they need to get the ball to Drew Timme and let him do Drew Timme things. There's a reason why he is an All-American.
True.
So yeah, we're doing all right there. Best pick of the week. I actually have to give a shout out here to my family. I had a family reunion last weekend, and it was with a bunch of Huskies. And I picked the Huskies to cover.
Right.
Did not pick them to win, but I picked them to cover. Since they won, they covered, obviously. And so that was my best pick.
What was the spread in that game?
Spread was
13.
Oregon by 12.5.
Oh, 12.
Was the spread. I predicted them to lose, I think, by 6, and they ended up winning by 3. So I'm considering that my best pick of the week. Also, shout out to my family. I know they're actually going to be listening to this.
So you're a Cougar that comes from a family of Huskies?
I'm a Cougar that comes from a family of Cougars and Huskies. My parents actually met in Pullman. My uncle was a field goal kicker for WSU.
Hey, my dad was a gymnast. Well, did your dad play for Wazoo when they were the Pac-8?
Yeah, 71 to 75. Not my dad, my uncle.
Oh, sorry.
And then he kicked in the NFL for 10 years. Kicked for the Giants for 8.
I'm just learning this now.
Yeah. Look up Joe Danello. He had the record he was the first kicker to kick 6 field goals in an NFL game, actually.
Wow.
What? Shout out to him. Yep.
What?
I have to say, the combination of all purple and all green uniforms on the field was the ugliest thing I've ever seen.
Agreed. So yeah, that was my best pick, was the Huskies to cover. Worst pick, pretty much everything in the NBA last week. I'm going to consider my worst pick. I think I was 20 games under 500 last week in the NBA. It was
like me and picking
brutal.
football.
It was brutal. like I said, NFL was good. I think we went 8-6. College football, we went like 11-7. College basketball, we went 2-0. But the NBA was a struggle. And yeah, actually, this week so far is not looking too much better. But there is a lot of NBA left, so we have plenty of time to turn it around. Other than that, just still making picks every day. Got my 10 random thoughts every day just on the sports world. So go check it out at www.sportspredictions.net.
What was
And
your
my
Hawks?
Seahawks pick, I picked the Seahawks to win, and I picked them to win 27-24. I thought it was going to be a close game in the mid-20s, so I got that right. But unfortunately, I did not get the outcome correct. So that was one of my misses on my website.
I picked them to win 23-20. I figured it was going to be a close, tough game. They made it
23-20 is interesting. If Seattle would have gotten the ball back and
Yeah.
scored that touchdown, it could have potentially been 23-21. That would have been two insane consecutive back-to-back weeks.
I was actually thinking about it.
Yeah, I'd pick the Hawks 31-18. I think for me, a little bit of the Kool-Aid. I got drunk. Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay looked pretty good. Credit to them. They didn't let the Hawks do too much early in the game and wrote it out.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Brian. Sportspredictions.net. Go check it out. It's something that we like to feature here.
P Cubed Podcast.
All right.
So let's recap the Munich bullshit.
There we go. All right. So next up on the agenda is a quick recap of the Hawks game last week. So after 4 consecutive weeks of looking pretty good, Hawks went to Munich and laid a bit of a dud. Looking back on it, I think an argument could be made that Tampa Bay started to look a bit like the team everyone expected in the preseason. But I think a more accurate way to tell the story of the game would be to discuss the Seahawks struggles. I think we shouldn't get too blinded by the, our love for the Seahawks. I think it's something we got to talk about. So the defense forced a punt and a missed long field goal to open the game on Tampa Bay's first 2 drives. But then they really didn't make a stop until halfway through the fourth quarter. Every other drive Tampa Bay had, they either scored on or, credit Tariq for catching the ball and then interception. But why is Leonard Fournette passing the ball to Tom Brady? Right.
Yeah.
And that's they got a little too creative there. And then on the offensive side of the ball, you never really got it going. They opened the game by taking a delay penalty on the 4th snap.
We talked about how efficient they were, and then they come out and they get a delay, and then they have to call a timeout. It was like a flashback to Russ.
So you're sitting on 3rd and 5. You take the delay. It's 3rd and 10. And now you got to burn a timeout. I don't know who was operating the clock. I think there could be something said for the international game at that point. I don't know if it's a classic NFL clock operator, but still, you got to take a timeout on 3rd and 10. That came out wrong. You got to take a timeout on 3rd and 10. Gino gets sacked and you punt on 4th and 27. On the second drive, Damian Lewis gets a personal foul, pushes you back into a 3rd and 21. It forces you into 2 consecutive punts. You haven't really done much yet. By the time you get the ball back on your 3rd possession, Tampa Bay has figured it out. You're down 7-0. And on that next 3rd down that you really need to convert, it's the first time you've had 3rd and makeable. It's 3rd and 2. Gino rolls out to the right. He's got a first down in front of him. He can just take, and he throws an incompletion over the middle. And I don't often scream at my TV. Both of you guys have watched sports with me. I'm pretty chill when I'm watching sports. I was screaming at my TV, why didn't you just take the first
if you looked at it from the other angle, there was a linebacker or a safety in space in front of him. He could have made the first down, but I think he either would have got thumped or it would have been very close if he had to slide.
So he throws incomplete over the middle. You're punting again. Tampa Bay scores. You're down by 14, and it's tough to claw back from there. So, Gino stayed cool. They came out of the half. They started to lead a comeback in the fourth quarter, but the defense wasn't able to get the stop when they needed it. You allowed Tampa Bay to get 4 first downs on their 4-minute drive to burn the clock, and that's game. Overall, I thought the spectacle, the game in Munich was
That
fantastic.
stadium looked
Man,
sick.
Allianz
Stadium
man.
was great, but I had a major problem with the turf. I felt like
Oh.
everybody was slipping.
Teams are playing on the same turf.
Jordan
One-
Brooks on that
100% of the European games, the turf is always a problem. It's been in Wembley, which is always a bit of an issue because I don't think there's a Premier League team that actively plays on it. It's a bit of a special use stadium. I was expecting better turf out of a field that's used week in, week out in Bundesliga, but we
Yeah, but
didn't
those
get it.
players are 100 pounds, not 250 pounds.
Yeah,
They-
I mean,
They
I did,
tore that shit up.
was it just me or did Kenneth Walker never look comfortable?
Well,
Nah.
we have a lot of players that are built off of quickness and speed, and when you have a field like that, you neutralize that. What the one thing that I noticed in the game was that the Buccaneers won in the trenches every time,
every time,
and they ran north south, and
we ran east west.
and they had the perfect game plan to beat us that day because Tom Brady was doing Tom Brady things.
Yeah. Well,
Where-
that's why I opened by saying, part of the game story is Tampa Bay were actually kind of looking like the Tampa
Yeah.
Bay that we would have expected,
You notice what they did with their best receivers, though, is they put them in the slot against our worst cornerbacks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you had Godwin and
Evans,
Evans on Kobe Bryant and Ryan Neal, who are good players, but they're not that level of player.
Yeah.
And Brady was just able to pick them apart, and they never put any pressure on them. Did like Newusu even play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely got neutralized. And I think one of the big things is, we have been talking the last 2 weeks about how great the Seahawks are at fundamentals and how great they are at doing their
they
job.
couldn't tackle. It was like they
And-
watched the Husky game and said, "Hey, that looks like fun. I'm going to try not tackling."
Everything that we talked about in the last 2 weeks just did
Mhm.
the complete opposite was the case in the game on Sunday. And I think that's the big reason why they lost is they couldn't tackle. They weren't, being very purposeful with their movements. They took the delay a game. They had penalties. It was everything that we had spent the last 2 weeks saying they didn't do and weren't doing.
I feel
And
like
yet
they came out
they-
and said, "Beat us with your run," and Buccaneers just beat them mercifully.
How about that rookie from Arizona State though? That kid is the real deal. Rashad White,
Yeah,
he is a legit running back in the NFL.
He
Sure
looked
is.
electric. Yeah.
and they went away from Fournette and gave Rashad White the load of the duties. I don't know
Except
if it was
for
injury
except for
or-
throwing the pass.
The
Wow.
broadcast really focused on that too. They kept picking him up, Fournette up on the sidelines, being, "Oh, Fournette, whoa, looks like he's not in the game." It's like, yeah, have you been paying attention? This guy's getting like 15 yards of carry over here.
Okay.
Why are you
Speaking
gonna
of the
give it to Sutton?
broadcast, and this is coming from a broadcasting major, 4 people in a booth, too much.
Awful.
That was a terrible
And
broadcast.
who was doing the play-by-play? Because he was bad.
It was Rich Eisen.
Was it
was
Rich
Eisen.
Eisen?
Rich
it-
Eisen, who is a Seahawks fan.
Oh.
That's some.
no, that's
he's
Kenny
he's a
Mayne.
Jets fan.
That's
Kenny
Kenny
Mayne and
Mayne.
Dan Patrick are the Seahawks fans.
But anyways, it was brutal. Michael
I-
Irvin every once in a while just chipping in, and
I empathize with their situation. It was pretty obvious that they made a logistical decision. They said, the people that are calling the game, we want them to be in the stadium, but we don't want to spend the money to send like 8 people over. So the crew that they were planning and that they normally have do the pregame, right? Because that's the NFL game day morning, right? It's Mooch, it's Kurt Warner, it's Irvin, and it's Rich. They had him double up on the broadcast. I personally love Rich Eisen. I think he's a fucking football icon. The guy just he's amazing. Not
not a
on my
play-by-play guy.
list of top 10 play-by-play guys, but that's not his skill set,
But I mean, Kurt Warner has done color before. So yeah, you had all 4 guys there. Just
Yeah.
have Eisen and Warner alone.
I mean-
you don't need Michael. Did Michael Irvin provide anything of value the entire
Having-
broadcast?
Having a play-by-play crew of 4 people is like having a podcast with 3 people. It's just a bad recipe.
What are you saying, Thomas?
Yeah, what are you saying, Thomas? Thomas, you're fired.
All right, I'm out of here.
No,
I'll produce. Put me in the booth. Yeah, I mean, for
Yeah,
me, I don't think there's a ton of points I want to touch.
there's not a lot to
I think
talk
you
about.
still
They
saw
just
a
got
lot of little
thumped.
flashes. I mean, Ken Walker didn't really do much, but he only got the ball 10 times.
Mhm.
Gino didn't make enough of his characteristically good decisions to extend the drives to allow more plays to get more yards. Like, it was just a dud.
Buccaneers just
Honestly, for
controlled the
me, it was
game.
hard to watch. Yeah.
There's
just
one
controlled the
thing
game.
that I did like, and that was when DK was just when he would catch those passes right at the line of scrimmage, and he was basically just saying, "Fuck this! I am running
Yeah,
with a full head of steam. Try and stop me."
stop me. Yeah,
I would love to see more of that. I mean, he literally was just run. It looked like a bowling ball out there. I mean, and they did it twice in the third quarter, and they got first downs both times.
hmm
I know that's not something that they do very often, but that's something I really like to see is DK just getting the ball and just getting a running head start at a DB. If you're a DB and you see that behemoth running
No,
at you,
thanks.
what are you going to do?
No, thanks.
there
Yeah.
were still good things out of this, and I'm still not worried. I still see 10 wins.
Agree.
I never had this game before the season started. I didn't pick this as a win anyways because I expected Tampa to be Tampa.
Yep.
They turned into Tampa, and like the team didn't stop fighting. That's the one thing I would highlight, is that they made a comeback and they had an opportunity had one or two plays been different, right? And so I think
Yeah,
that's
I mean, you make one of those stops, you get the ball back with a couple of minutes left. The offense had kind of figured something out right there
They
in the
did,
fourth quarter.
yeah.
So who knows?
I mean,
Who
Gino
knows?
fumbling, he took it all on himself. That's a huge thing. Like, he didn't blame anyone else. That was his fault. He said he should have thrown it away. I mean, it's not. It was alarming at how big of a difference it was from the previous games. But that in the last 5 games are 4-1. Can't complain about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we're 10 games in. You've got, let's see, you've got the Denver game that you don't draw any conclusions from to start the season, because who knows what that was. And I have a note about Denver that's hilarious. Then you look pretty bad against the Niners, Falcons, Lions, and Saints. And in those games, you go 1-3, right? You scratch out a win against the Lions. Then for 4 weeks, you look like you'll never lose again. And then you lay a dud 10 time zones away. I think going into the bye, you feel pretty good about where the team is at. You feel great that you've got rookies that have 10 games under their belt. They're going to start playing better and better.
Team.
You continue to have confidence in the coaching staff's ability to coach them up from game to game to game to continue to see the improvements. And the schedule, the 7 games left on the schedule, set up in a really good way. You've got 7 games left. 2 of them are on the road, right? You've got Raiders at home who suck. You've got Rams at home who suck and don't have Cooper Kupp and maybe Matt Stafford. Sorry, that's at Rams. Then you've got Panthers at home who suck. Niners at home who are good. At the Chiefs who are good. Then you're home to the Jets and home to the Rams to finish the season off. You can realistically, not maybe the highest probability, but what's the problem going 11-6?
Yeah, which would be insane.
Yeah.
It's absurd. So you feel good going into the bye. You don't feel great that they kind of laid a dud, but the team's in really good shape. You got a bye week. You got 7 games to go. You're still looking good for the playoffs. And more than that, you feel good about how the team is developing for the future, and your draft picks are looking better and better.
Oh man.
I think the bye is coming at the perfect time too.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're healthy going into the bye too.
the Seahawks, for it always seems like their bye is early to me. So I can't even tell you the last time they had a bye this late. So
they activated Trey Brown too.
I think it's awesome that they halfway through the season, the rookies, they've almost had, like, none of them have played 17 games before. The most they've played maybe 13, 14 games. So,
and if you include the preseason, we're at 13 right now.
Yeah, and most of the rookies played every snap in the preseason. I know both tackles did.
Man, can we talk about these rookie tackles?
They struggled, but I think
Lucas,
the turf had a big thing to do with it, and that Buccaneers defensive line is legit.
They're legit.
Pete said something really interesting after the game, and it wasn't really necessarily in this exact context that you've just brought up, but he was just kind of talking about the spectacle and the experience of playing this game in Munich, and he kind of categorized it as a lost opportunity because every single person that was there with both teams, and anyone that was there for any reason, he was saying that this was the type of incredible experience that you never forget. And if we would have also won, it would have just been that much better, and so there is a bit of a missed opportunity there. But
how about the fact that the whole crowd was singing John Denver late in that fourth quarter? That was
European football,
awesome.
man.
That was awesome.
All right. Anything else to add for Hawks? I don't think there's a lot to talk
Hawks
about. I'm over
Let's enjoy the week off and get back to it in 2 weeks.
If anybody didn't know, there's a bye week, so we're not going to go talk about prepping for the next game.
Hey, at least I know I'm going to get that one right.
Yeah, but we forget about that. Go into the bye week, come out of it healthy, and let's finish the season strong.
P Cubed Podcast.
All right, Brian, you ready to be highlighted?
Let's do it.
So we're gonna do our segment here called the P Cubed Highlight. So it's something that we started last week. We want to kind of devote some time and energy to highlighting a person or a thing or an organization that we think deserves to be highlighted. Considering what we're doing here is new, we thought it might be fun to touch each one of us first time through, so you guys could.
I don't want you touching me.
Yeah, that was a weird word choice, but we're just gonna keep going. I think one of the unique things that we could potentially bring is the chemistry and connection that we have with each other, and kind of drawing you guys in and having a conversation with us. And that's only done by kind of opening ourselves up to you guys. So we thought it'd be interesting to have a little bit of section here where we introduce you to each one of us. So if you missed last week, Nate and Brian asked some questions of me, and this week we're going to dive into Brian a little bit.
All right, Brian.
Yeah, Nate, you want to get us started?
Give me a 30-second bio on Brian.
All right. Born and raised in Spokane, Washington, right on the Idaho border. As I have mentioned, I think every week, went to Washington State University, majored in broadcasting, wanted to be the next Dave Niehaus. Ended up getting into sales to start my career, and I have been in sales ever since. I've spent the last about 6 years working for a company now. Love it. Selling doors. Not something you would think, but it is a good career. I am engaged. Been engaged for almost a year now. We are getting married next August. We have a date. We have a venue, which is a huge relief. That was causing quite a bit of stress, but it's good to have the venue and the date. So yeah, looking forward to next year, getting married and going to Greece for our honeymoon.
Nice. Oh, that sounds amazing. Congratulations again. I think life is about joy, it's about sharing, it's about happiness. So I'm happy for you.
Appreciate that.
Happy for your lovely lady.
You're next.
Gently, please.
So Brian, I came to know you as a member of our softball team, and I have found you to be quite athletic. You were our shortstop, and I know you have a long history of being a pretty good basketball player. Do you have a particular coach or teammate or moment from youth sports that really had a kind of a big impact on you?
Yeah, I do. My dad was my baseball coach for
That's
4
really
years.
Cool. Nice.
From 5th grade through 9th grade. Actually, he wanted to make an example out of me, so I always ran more than anyone else, probably because I was talking when I shouldn't have been. Big shocker there. But the only championship I ever won in youth sports was in 6th grade baseball, and my dad was my coach, and it was something I'll never forget. 1997 Spokane Midget League champions right here.
That's not PC.
I don't think you can say that anymore.
Midget was actually the league.
So this is a factual statement about the name of the league. Okay. Perfect.
Yes, there in Spokane you have Pee Wee, Midget, and Giant.
Yeah,
Those are
man,
the three leagues.
that's a sex offender, slur, and I don't know what giant is.
So, anyways, yeah. So
The 8-1 football team, 8-2
we were
football
the
team.
championships, and it was really nice to be able to celebrate that with my dad.
That's
Nice.
really cool.
You mentioned your biggest regret from last time not investing earlier. What is your second biggest regret?
Ooh, my second biggest regret, probably not going probably going into sales right out of college. I wanted to be, like I said, a sports broadcaster, and I majored in broadcast production at Washington State, and I should have gone into starting at the bottom and doing high school football games, high school basketball games, and working my way up from there. And then 15 years later, who knows where I'd be? But probably that. I love talking. I love sports. I would have loved to have made a career out of it. Not that I don't love my career now, but that would have been the dream. So
I think
probably
I
that.
have a pretty good follow-up to that. Like what's something that somebody might not guess by just looking at you? I never knew that you wanted to go into sports broadcasting. I always knew you as like the sports guy, athletic and playing with you in sports. But what's something that somebody might not guess by looking at you?
I was in the orchestra for 7 years in middle school and high school.
What did you
I
play?
Played the stand-up bass.
Holy cow! Nice.
Oh, you
Yeah.
slapped the bass.
Slapping the
did.
bass, man.
Oh,
I
man.
did.
So you guys didn't touch that with me. I was also in the youth orchestra.
Oh,
What instrument did you play? Let me guess. You played the viola.
No, it was I guess technically it was a symphony because there were wind instruments. Is that the delineating difference? Yeah. So it was symphony for me. So I played trumpet and percussion.
Okay.
I was in a professional children's choir when I was a kid in Alaska.
That's not true. You were an amateur children's choir.
No,
Nate,
they paid
Nate,
us.
we were going to ask
perform.
you something like that next week, and you just ruined it.
Paid you to perform. You were a professional, dude. You lost your eligibility at a young age.
So yeah, and so yeah, it would definitely be playing in the orchestra. And by the way, I'm tone deaf, so I had no idea if what I was doing sounded right. But
I've got a couple other ones. So Brian, I remember being at an M's game with you last year, and we ran into some young guys that you'd previously coached in basketball, and they couldn't believe that they saw you in public. Like, oh my God, he's a person too. Like they clearly were just so happy to see you there. Are you coaching anything these days? And do you have any moments in your coaching career that you're particularly proud of?
I am not coaching right now. I coached youth basketball for 6 years. It was always 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Definitely my moment was my last year coaching when we made the state tournament. State tournament was in Spokane, so my parents were actually able to come watch me coach. They watched me play and everything, but they actually got to watch me coach. And I remember I looked at my dad and I said, "Dad, just so you know, I tend to chirp at officials, so don't be surprised if I get a technical foul at some point in this tournament."
This is true about softball as well.
And sure enough, I did get a technical foul. So yeah, we lost 4 games in that state tournament, but 3 of those games were by 1 or 2 points. So it was, we were playing the best teams in the state. We were right there. And I always say that, we lost because of coaching. We didn't lose because of the players. But yeah, those kids, actually, it's funny. Those were the first kids that I ever coached. So I coached those kids when they were 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
That's cool.
And seeing them at the pen drinking a beer was one of the craziest things I've ever seen, because I knew these kids when they were 11, 12, 13 years old. So the fact that they're 21 now and in college and able to legally drink was insane. But, I have those kids, I still hear from them all the time. I still hear from the parents of those kids all the time. It was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So
what did you get out of coaching? Like I would I don't think I could ever coach. I don't think I know sports well enough. I don't think I could teach it well enough. Like, what inspired you to get into coaching, and what did you get out of it?
Patience. Because I
Mm.
coached the B team, and so it was kids that were talented enough to make a team that had cuts, but it was like the JV team. So it was a lot of patience and repetition and learning how to deal with middle schoolers. Which one other thing you may not know about me is I actually was going to school at that time to be a teacher and a basketball coach. Decided not to do that,
Oh,
but
wow.
that is I loved coaching, and I think patience is one of the things that I got out of it. One of
I
my
think you would
favorite
have been a good
stories,
teacher.
I would always start my season by saying, I have two jobs as your coach: to make you better and to help you have fun. That's it. Wins, losses don't matter. If you get better, if you improve, and if you have fun, the wins will come. And since we made the state tournament, they obviously did. So
Nice.
That's awesome.
yeah, I do miss it.
Got a question, another callback. You mentioned that you like baseball card collecting. Besides baseball cards, what is one material possession you would save if you had a fire in your
I
house?
feel like, Nate, you
You
didn't
can't-
need to give the qualifier there besides baseball cards. If there's literally a house fire and Brian's answer is baseball cards, we will have learned something about him today.
So see, it's not baseball cards, but I do collect something else too. I collect autographed baseballs of Hall of Famers. I have Hall of Fame baseball players. I have 16 of them. Everyone
Wow.
from Brooks Robinson, Frank
Wow.
Robinson, Frank Thomas, Duke Snyder, Andre Dawson, Tony Gwynn, Cal Ripken, a bunch of them.
You
Oh
can say the
man,
baseballs.
it's probably the baseballs.
Yeah.
It's in a nice display. In fact, next week you'll be able to see it behind me. That's what you've seen
All
it
right.
behind me. So it's probably the baseballs.
Cool. Nice.
I would like to collect every Hall of Famer before I die, but that's going to be quite an undertaking.
Finish this sentence. I wish I could be better at
Being quiet, learning when to speak and when not to speak. I do have a tendency to put my foot in my mouth every once in a while, as I'm
That's
sure you guys
impressive.
know.
I'm not that flexible.
Oh, I do yoga. So no,
There has
it's
been some
definitely,
colorful opportunities in softball for sure.
yeah,
Ugh.
it's something I'm constantly working on, and I'm definitely better than I was 10 years ago, and I know Nate can attest to that, but it's still something I need to improve on.
Without much discussion, just some names. Who is on your Seattle Sports Mount Rushmore non-player?
Wait, like a coach?
Non-player.
Oh, like
Dave
anything.
Niehaus,
1,
Kevin Calabro,
2.
Squatch,
Oh my God. 3.
and as much as I hate to say it as a Coug, fourth one's probably got to be Don James.
That's pretty solid.
Not the Moose, huh?
Shut up, the Moose.
No.
Nate,
Squatch is a much better mascot, and he hasn't even been around for 15 years.
Nate, I got a couple quick
Mix-a-Lot?
hitters here. You want me to grab these quick hitters
hit
and
it.
then let you finish up? All right.
Yeah.
Brian, similar to that one, try to give me just like a quick little answer to these. Go-to beverage.
Alcohol or non-alcohol?
Go-to
Beverage.
beverage.
Arnold Palmer, iced tea, half and half.
Oh my God, we are learning about you today.
That is my
That's
go-to.
disgusting.
Or a Mountain Dew Kickstart Orange Citrus.
Okay, based on that answer, this question might go the wrong way. Do you cook?
I do.
What's your
I
go-to? What's the best dish you make?
If you ask my fiance, it is my sausage sandwiches. So basically, you get
What's in a sausage sandwich?
so you just get sausage, peppers, onions, Italian seasoning, garlic, a little bit of sauce, and then you put it on a hoagie roll.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No,
What constitutes a sandwich?
Guys, we could do a whole episode.
Okay, fine. Fine.
Also, I make a very, very good spaghetti sauce.
Nice.
I mean, you're Italian.
I am
If you were a sandwich, what kind of sandwich would you be?
meatball because I'm Italian and I look like a meatball right now.
We could do an hour on sandwiches, but Nate, I
We
think
could.
you should close this out.
All right, Brian. Same as last week. What was one question you wish we would have asked you, and then how would you have answered?
Oh, one question. Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't ask me what actor would play me in a movie.
Give it to us.
Yeah.
Probably Turtle from Entourage.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know his name, but that's probably who I would go with.
Right on. That's a good answer. Well, Brian, we really appreciate you being open and honest, and it's nice to get to know you a little bit better. And we're going to be featuring something on the P Cubed highlight, whether it be one of us or one of you, or a unique and interesting topic, maybe not dealing with sports. You know, we talk a lot of sports on this show, so I really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the other side.
Appreciate
It was a lot of fun.
P Cubed Podcast.
Well, party people, we're going to talk a little bit about some hot stove league action here. We had the general managers meetings last week, right? Or was it the week before last? I can't really recall.
It was last
Now,
week.
what day is it?
Yeah, coming out of it, we had some really good rumors, and I want to touch on some of them. One that happened today, and we're recording this on Tuesday. Is it the 15th today?
15th yet?
The rumor of Teoscar Hernandez and a possible trade with Toronto for what was mentioned as Chris Flexen. You know, Jerry DiPoto came out of the winter meetings pretty much praising all of the players. You're not going to say like, yeah, we're looking to get rid of all of these guys. You know, he's going to come out and he's going to say that he loves Winker and he loves what Marco brings. And
really quick, Nate.
Yeah.
You know Jerry DiPoto is not the GM, right?
Yes, but he was the one that was representing the team at the meetings. Hollander was going to be interviewed today on 93.3. And he said, sorry, I was late because I was working on finalizing a trade. And then the comments came out about Teoscar. So that was really interesting. You know, today it came out that Winker, Marco, and Flexen are available on the market. And
that came officially from Jerry, or that was just hearsay?
it was reported by somebody. I don't recall. I apologize. It's terrible radio. And then, you know, Tampa said that they were willing to make multiple trades. And I think that's always interesting when Tampa comes out and says that. Like, the only team that I can see that would like willingly give up on a player to bring up a minor leaguer, you know, they're just that good.
Tampa's the organization that always has no problem trading too soon because they absolutely want to avoid trading too late. And the way that they churn their bullpen with young arms, they end up always being in an awkward position at this time of the offseason because they have to make the decision between keeping players on the 40-man or making them eligible for the Rule 5 draft. So they always are in a weird position this part of the offseason. And I don't know if they're just in an extra weird position this offseason or if it's just being more reported. But yeah, it seems like the baseball world right now is revolving around Tampa Bay until we get some determination of the Rule 5 eligibility tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, thinking about the Teoscar rumor, when it was first mentioned, I was like, Chris Flexen for Teoscar Hernandez, who was won a Silver Slugger, seems lopsided. But then you look at the Tyler Anderson. Well, you look at the Tyler Anderson contract, and an average pitcher getting, what do you get, 4 at 40 or something like that?
It was 3
at 40?
1 second.
And so that really shows that, you know, pitching is at a premium right now. And the Mariners have 2 pitchers that are functional 4 or 5 starters that they could, move for additional pieces.
God bless the Angels. Tyler Anderson signed a 3-year, $39 million contract
With the Angels?
with the Angels. So this guy had an unbelievable year last year. I think he made 30 starts with the Dodgers. Had like a 2.54, I think was the number I remember. But coming into this season, he had like a 4.5 career ERA. So to Nate's point, even fringe pitchers that you think could just eat innings and give you decent outings are going to get 13 million a year. It makes a guy like Flexen, who is only under contract for a single season, but it's at $8 million. And it makes a guy like Marco, who still is under contract for 2 more years for an average of about 9 million per year, with a third year on the back end with a $15 million club option. It makes these guys commodities, right? This Anderson contract has ramifications across the league.
Tyler Anderson almost single-handedly won me my fantasy baseball championship, by the way. Lost in the finals, but he wasn't the reason why.
Yeah, so there's some interesting things starting to trickle out.
Yep.
There's a rumor that Gleyber Torres is going to be available from the Yankees. He's another guy that fits in that 3 WAR area.
Yep.
Who, a few years ago you would have said, oh man, they can get whatever they want for him. I think now, like a solid pitcher or a pitcher plus gets a player like that, and that's a 800 OPS and 25 bombs. Like, it's nothing to sneeze at.
It's not, but that's becoming a lot more common than, like Thomas said, pitchers that eat innings.
It's true.
Shout out to Foolish Baseball. He did a little award show on YouTube in the last couple of days, and he had one award that he made up for the innings eater, which he awarded to the pitcher who had a below average ERA plus that pitched the most innings.
Patrick Corbin.
It was Marco. Had a 90 ERA plus and pitched 180 innings.
Yeah. So we've been talking about something that we want to do, and we're going to keep our normal format for our shows, but we're going to have an additional show next week where we focus on our wish list for the Mariners. And I think it's going to be
our wish list and our guest list.
Our wish list and our what we think DePoto and Hollander will do in reality, right? And so I think it's going to be a pretty fun episode where we can chat about what our desires are. We're not going to go ham and say like sign Trey Turner, sign Josh Bell, sign Aaron Judge, and then we're off.
Oh, spoiler alert!
And I'm the one who read it.
Gonna commit 60 million a year to 3 guys.
Yeah,
60 plus, 100 plus.
I'd rather have Jose Abreu.
It's a separate
Josh Bell.
It's a separate
episode, but we're gonna go back to that. But I think one thing we really wanted to.
So keep a lookout next week. Like Nate said, we're going to try to keep our regular format, like a Thursday, Friday release, the regular show, but we're also going to do an extra episode for what our expectation and plan would be for Mariners offseason. So if you're looking for some kind of interesting Mariners discussion about roster construction and short-term, long-term overview, look out for that.
Hit that
next
show
week.
Up, give us some feedback, tell us where we're wrong.
If you're driving somewhere for Thanksgiving and you don't want to think about the next 6 hours with your family, give it a listen.
That'll be me.
So Brian, you really wanted to talk about these rule changes, didn't you?
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Okay.
3 rules are a pitch clock, larger bases, and banning the shift. So they have to have 2 infield players on each side of second base, and they cannot be on the outfield grass. Brian, I know you have some strong opinions about this.
Okay. When baseball was invented back in the late 1800s.
Oh my God. Pull up a chair. Fuck.
Do you know why those players were put in the defensive positions that they were in?
No.
Because that's where the ball was most commonly hit. It's that simple. They put the defensive players where they were most commonly hit. Now, the ball is most commonly hit to the pull side. So that's why they have 3 infielders on the pull side for most players. And now they're basically saying, you're not allowed to do what you've been doing in baseball for the last 150 years, which is hit the ball, or which is be in position where the ball is usually hit. And
Rules
that
change,
bothers
though.
me.
Football, you can't run forward when you're in motion. You have to have a certain number of players set. You have to have a certain number of players on the line.
Has
It's
that
common.
changed?
Yeah, it has changed.
Okay. But I don't like it. I don't
That's
like
fine.
it. Well,
You don't have to like it.
that's
I don't like it is an acceptable take.
It is
yeah,
an
I
acceptable
just-
take.
learn to hit the ball the other way.
You're not
I
going to
wanna-
learn to hit the ball the other way with dudes with spin rates out of the fucking moon and are throwing 99 miles an hour at a ball that looks like a changeup. It's impossible. These pitchers are ridiculous. You got to even the playing field. So
Then
even
bunt. You
oh
can
my
bunt
God.
it.
And then you eat one in the face. Like
Wait,
I'm not going to square
eat
around
one
on a
in the
99
face?
mile an hour cutter like coming at you. Like no fucking way. And plus these players don't bunt.
That's the problem.
So in the
the
70s,
problem
what
is-
was it, the 70s or the 60s when they lowered the mound?
It was
To make it
69.
Right, to give
Nice.
the hitters a little bit of advantage, right? So there are changes to the game to make the game better. This change is good. It doesn't mean that you're not going to see players on that side of the field. Person could stand right at second base and run over as the pitch is going, right? They can do a shift like that. So as long as he's there when the pitch is thrown, I'm appreciative. I hate Rob Manfred. He's a piece of crap and he hates baseball.
Crap.
But this is one.
This isn't a kid's show.
This is one rule that I am fully in support of.
I don't like how the game feels when I watch it. When someone hits a line drive into the hole between first and second, and then they're out at first. I don't like how that feels. So I can understand why they've tried to implement this rule, but I tend to agree with Brian. I don't like this correction. I think you talk about lowering the mound, right? There's other things you can do, and then the game will evolve based on its new condition, and the game can evolve into the thing that you want it to become. You want less 3 true outcome. You want more action. You want more base runners. You want more interesting things going on. I think banning the shift isn't the right way to get there. I think what's going to happen is the game is going to correct in an unexpected way, and they're going to have to make another rule change or update this rule change to account for that unexpected consequence. I would have strongly preferred for them to make fewer rule changes for things that were less likely to have unexpected consequences, such as the larger bases. I think is an amazing change. And then kind of wait and see. But we don't really have a wait and see society, do we?
Well, you're also
No,
going to
we
see
don't.
you're going to see more games in motion. I think especially with the new bases.
Well, with these 3 rules together, it's going to be exponential, right? So think about all the times you've seen a replay of a stolen base and it was like that close. Now the runner has 6 fewer inches to go, and it's hard to imagine the number of plays that are the difference between an out and safe is 6 inches, but it's like a lot of fucking plays. Like, these are professionals. They know exactly where those margins are. The fact that you have 3 inches closer to get back to first and 3 inches closer to get to second, there's going to be a ton more stolen bags next year just based on that.
Oh yeah.
But also there's the weird wrinkle of the pitch clock rule that limits the number of pickoff moves you can do. So after the pitcher commits their first pickoff move, there's a limit of 2 pickoff moves per kind of situation of batter, runners, and pitcher, right? So if there's a runner at first, there's a limit of 2 pickoff moves. And so as soon as the pitcher makes 1 pickoff move, the runner's like, cool, the next time he tries to pick me off, he has to pick me off. He can't fake it again. So the runners are going to be, it's going to be so much easier for the runners to run because they have information they didn't previously have, right? Previously, you could throw over every single time. And so each individual instance of a potential pitch or a potential pickoff had to be treated individually. Now there's extra information. The closer bases, the extra information, and the banning of the shift. I think these 3 are just going to, I think it's going to
be a
too
lot
much
of fun. And I think players like Jock Peterson and Joey Gallo have new life.
This is something you and I have talked about separately. Some of these guys that were pushing themselves to become
Brad
3 true
Miller.
outcome players because they weren't average guys and they always hit it into their pull side guys like Kyle Seager. You kidding me? You think Kyle
Mhm.
Seager would have had better career numbers if there wasn't
His
a
brother
shift?
is gonna benefit from it for sure.
Oh man, it's crazy. All right, so Brian, hugely against the shift. How do you feel about the bases?
Love it.
I do too. I think it's a slam dunk for player safety, and in isolation, if it was the only rule change, I think it would have a lot of the increased action that they want.
He's my
All right,
player.
so
though.
Brian is anti-shift. Hit it where they ain't. Stop changing the rules so quickly. He's pro bases and
Pitchers
he's
are too good. You can't do that.
pro pitch clock. Nate, where are you at on these three?
Love the bases. Want to see more motion in the game. I missed that. I was at the playoff game, and I saw Julio, rookie of the year, steal a base, and it was like the most exciting thing I've ever seen.
Like you needed it and he got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was really cool.
Yep.
The pitch clock is awesome as long as they put pressure on the players to not take as much time in between.
It's
They've been
gonna
trying to
depend on
regulate
how
that
they
for
implement
years.
it, but
yeah. And I would
Right.
really love to see a guy like JD Martinez be standing there and doing his dipshit and them just like let him throw
strike
and
out.
have a strike.
Really
Yeah.
quick.
He's
Really
like
quick.
adjusting his jock and he strikes out.
Really quick, give me your favorite Julio moment from this year.
I think the Grand Slam. Who was it against?
It's
Texas.
Texas.
Yeah, I think that was really fun. Like, in my mind, I was like, "Oh, this would be awesome," and they hit it. I was like, "Oh, yes."
The homer against Neris in Houston
Hmm.
right after the brawl, where he
Yeah.
like walked the pitcher away and said, "Nah, bro, you need to stay in the game. I'm about to take you deep."
I've
he
got
did.
two. The home run he hit against Atlanta, that
Mhm.
missile
That's a big one.
that
Yeah.
tied the game. And then the game we were at, Thomas, when he led off the game with a double and was out, and then fell between second and third,
I forgot we
thrown
were
out.
at that game.
was thrown out, trying to stretch it into a triple, and just the
Yeah.
look on his face.
Yeah.
Those two
Yeah,
moments
got-
for me.
it
That,
was-
that perfectly encapsulates Julio as a ball player.
It was in that moment that you were totally sure that he was totally him and you love him for it.
I got one thing to say about him, and this is what I think makes him so unique. Is I've never seen a rookie handle the crowd and social media and the actual media the
Oh
way
my
that
God.
he does it.
Come-
He's the perfect, if you had to like make a mold of what you would want a rookie to be,
Yep.
he's it, right?
Yep.
Great
Yep.
player, great
Yep.
with the fans, amazing
Yep.
with the fans, amazing on engagement in social media, and then amazing to the media. Even when he like would go out and talk to the crowd, and he
Yeah.
would just like, you can see how excited he is. And he is the anti-Kellenic,
We could do a whole episode on his contract. I have enough research in the bag to do that. Maybe we'll touch that a little bit when we.
One thing we didn't really talk about is how adept at spreadsheets Thomas is.
Oh, that kind of came up in my highlight last week. So just to wrap up rule changes real quick. So I'm pro base. I think that makes us all three of us pro base. I think I'm gonna be anti-shift. Does that make all three of us anti-shift?
No, Nate's pro.
It was pro shift. I think something needs to be done, but I'm not sure what needs to be done, and I'm pretty sure that what they have done isn't correct. So I think I'm anti this. And then I'm mixed on the pitch clock. I think the pitch clock is required, but I don't like that they added in the pickoff limitations. I think the goal of the pitch clock is to speed up the game. You're not going to measurably speed up the game by limiting pickoff moves, but you do put an extra parameter in there. I think that you're not prepared for. You're going to have a guy with 60 or 70 bags next year. It's going to be insane.
It'll be a disaster. It'll be a disaster
Yeah.
to start, but it'll balance itself out because either they'll adjust or something will happen. Right? It doesn't mean they can't go back to anything. Right? They can't.
True, and that's important to note too. Right? This is what we're doing this year. We might have to change. Hopefully they take that perspective.
So all three of us, well, I mean, at least two out of the three of us, because Thomas will admit that he doesn't like baseball, but I think he does. Really enjoy the game of baseball, and we'll talk a lot about it coming up in the next.
I don't like the 3.5 hour, you know, I don't know how to finish this statement.
P Cubed Podcast.
Yeah, so for Tyson Zone this week, I had a unique offering. The Buffalo Bills Minnesota Vikings game. That game, I got into it towards the end because I took a nap after the Seahawks game. But at the
Classic
end,
dad.
at the end, I was literally saying to myself, this, I think I texted it to you too. I said, this
Yeah,
game is in the Tyson Zone
Yeah.
because anything could have happened and I would have believed it. And it kind of did. And, you know, like the Justin Jefferson catch and the fumble at the goal line for a touchdown and the interception at the end, Patrick Peterson's second of the game, like, you know, anything could have happened. I thought for sure that Buffalo is going to drive down and win the game. But then he threw an interception, you know, so I think that's a pretty unique take to throw a game in there for the Tyson Zone.
Yeah.
That Justin Jefferson catch probably was the best catch I've ever
Ridiculous.
What do you got for Tyson Zone B?
seen. Cristiano Ronaldo is my Tyson Zone candidate.
Ooh,
Soccer.
Yeah,
contextualize.
I just said I'm not big into soccer, and then I bring soccer into the Tyson Zone. Everything that's been going on with him, with the club that he plays for, where he's pissed that he's on the bench, and now he's talking to the press that he's pissed that he's on the bench and he wants a transfer and no one wants him, and it's just
38?
a mess over there. I'm excited to see him play for Portugal in the World Cup, but
This will probably be his last World Cup.
Mhm.
oh, it definitely will be his last World Cup, and who knows if we'll see him again after that. I mean, honestly, would it surprise you guys at all if his next club is in the MLS?
It would surprise me, to be honest. There was a point where an MLS team would sign a name and sell some tickets. The league has gotten too competitive. If he really is falling off, like if he doesn't put a good shift in the World Cup and he, you know, goes the way of Rajas, you might not see an MLS team sign him. And the other difficulty is a player like that. I mean, the wages for these players
The
in
money
Europe
is going to be way
is
too high.
absurd. And if you're talking about signing him to an MLS contract, the most he'd get if an MLS team was serious,
6
would be
million?
something like 8. I was going to say 8. He shit that last night, you know, in his gold-plated toilet, you know. So I think he'd really have to humble himself to come
It's
here.
two
And
McLarens, it's two Ferraris, it's two Bugattis.
I don't expect it. A guy like Messi that's already talked about it, I think he'd be happy finishing his career here. You see a lot of these European players, the Higuains and
Gareth Bale.
Chiellinis and Bales, you know, they'll come here and they'll give us a couple of good years towards the end of their career. It just doesn't seem like it's in the cards for Ronaldo, but it's a good Tyson Zone.
Unless he came and got ownership in a team, you know. I mean, that's
he's always been too mercurial. I don't
Yeah.
think there's any ownership group in MLS that has an attractive enough product to offer him that also has sufficiently unstable ownership to consider offering him. Right? I don't see the fit.
That's a good one, Brian.
Yeah, it's a really good one. That's a bit of a reach, but I really like it. I think, especially the World Cup coming up, it's a good call.
Thank you.
For me, Tyson's on this week, I think for me is a callback. We talked last week about the apparent disaster in Indianapolis and just with everything that was going on with Irsay, and you know, Irsay was our Tyson Zone last week. What's he going to do next? It won't surprise me. Fire this guy, fire that guy, hire this guy. Colts win this weekend. My buddy James in Atlanta, shout out James, was texting me a little bit about what this might show us about coaching. Do you need to be an expert play caller? Do you need to be an expert in this or an expert in that? Or do you just need to be a good leader and put the right people in the right places? So for me, I don't really have a Tyson Zone this week. Just a little kind of a thought provoking
We might have
recall
to
from
revisit
last
that
week.
and talk about it.
Yeah, I think I think they're going to struggle as the week goes on, but the fact that they put it together and got it done this past Sunday, I think is shows you what's possible.
He's a better coach than he is on TV.
Quite possibly the only team more dysfunctional than them. I'm sorry.
That's not true. They did not play the Broncos.
I'm not sold. Not sold. I mean, Josh
Oh my
McDaniels is
God.
probably going to be one and done. Who
Yeah.
cares if they won?
And then he's gonna go back to the Patriots, and the Patriots gonna go to the fucking Super Bowl. Son of a bitch.
Sorry, I'm not. No, I'm not impressed with Jeff Saturday.
Do we have a
because they beat the
consensus on
Raiders.
Tyson Zone this week? I think I made a pretty good argument.
I don't even remember what yours was.
The Bills Vikings game.
No, it's Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo is one of those guys that's fringe
Why
perpetual
do I always
Tyson Zone.
lose?
It's in your
Because
blood.
I always win at the Tyson Zone. This is my
Bitch.
game.
It's in your nature.
Fuckers. Fine.
Because of the three of us, who's the closest to the Tyson Zone?
Oh, you for sure.
Yeah,
Brian does what Brian wants in softball
Yeah.
for
no, it's me. That's why I always win at the Tyson Zone.
There you go.
yeah. Just like a quick hitter of a story. Brian in softball back in the day. If everybody remembers the term Manny being Manny, it was definitely Brian being Brian. So we can get into that at a different time. All right, Brian, what's your question?
All right. What does Google Random Question Generator have for us today?
And if anybody wants to submit a question,
Yes.
feel free.
So don't forget, you can hit us up, p3sportspod@gmail.com. If you've got something you think would be fun for us to answer as a random question, or if you've got a comment or a topic, or just asking us what's up, hit us up.
All right. So our question today is, what story does your family always tell about you?
Hmm.
And if you guys want, I can go first.
Yeah,
'cause
go
I
first.
Okay, so I'm about 6, 7 years old, learning how to ride a bike. We go to the elementary school that's about a mile from our house. And it had rained a couple days before, so there was, a couple of puddles. There was a couple of small ones, one big one right in the middle. So I'm learning how to ride a bike, and I'm going back and forth in the parking lot of this elementary school, and I do it great 2 times. And my dad says, "Brian, why don't you go one more time? Ride to the truck, and then we'll get in the truck and we'll go home." I'm like, "All right." The whole family's there, mom, dad, brother, all there. So I am pedaling and I'm going. My dad, he's helping me, and then let's go. And I'm going by myself. And the puddle and me start making eye contact. And I start heading for this puddle. And I'm going for this. This is a huge puddle.
Oh, that's so good.
And I'm going, and my dad, he sees this happening and he yells, "Brian, pedal through, pedal through." Well, I heard my dad's voice. So what do? I stop right in the middle of the puddle. But I stopped so fast that I actually went over the handlebars, right into the puddle. So my parents are behind the truck. They are laughing so hard. My brother is in my face. He's laughing so hard. So we get the bike in the back of the truck, and I'm about ready to get into the truck. And my dad goes, "Nope, nope, you got to go right in the bed with the bike."
Yeah.
So I couldn't even get in the truck. I had to ride in the back of the truck with the bike for that 1.5 miles to our house. And then when I get to the house, I had to take my clothes off in the garage because my parents didn't want the muddy clothes in the house.
That's funny.
And they will tell that story until the day they die.
Man, I've got an amazing one about my sister. Can I tell it?
Yeah.
All right. So I have an older sister. She's 22 months older than I am. She lives in Dallas now, but this was, back when we used to live together when we were kids. So my parents tell this story about one time we were having a family dinner. We had some guests over, and I don't think it was a holiday. It's not really important for the story, but it was one of those classic family situations where, mom and dad and the 2 kids and the guests are all sitting at the table. And one of the things my parents did for my sister and I is they talked to us kind of ahead of time, "Hey, we're about to go do this. What's the proper way to behave?" And they would kind of talk us through these things before we got there. And so we were able to, behave in the way that they wanted us to. "Hey, we're going to the grocery store. What's the proper? Oh, I'm quiet. I follow. I don't leave," things like that. Anyway, for this dinner, the way that they tell the story, they had prepared my sister ahead of time. They said, "Laura, we have some guests over. There's going to be adults talking," a classic kind of parent speak. "So you can speak up if someone asks you a question or if you have an emergency." And those are the ground rules they laid for my sister. And so dinner's going on, no problem. Everyone's eating, everyone's talking, no problem. And then towards the end, my sister starts like looking around. It's like, oh, it looks like she has something to say, and she grabs my mom's arm. She says, I have a ham emergency. It's because she wanted more food. It's like a kid's brain. It's like, oh, I want this really bad. I think it's an emergency. I want some ham.
Ham emergency.
It's not about me, but that's a great answer to that question, I think. What do you got, Nate?
We got two. You guys can pick the toboggan story or the dog jumping off a cliff story.
Toboggan.
I think the dog jumping off the cliff story is funnier.
I mean, you gave us the choice.
I know. I lived in Alaska. I grew up there as a kid, and there was this gravel pit down the road from where we lived. My dad was a minister also, and it was in between the church and the house. And we would always go there when there was snow on the ground, which was often in Alaska. I didn't really have to say that. And so it was a very, very large hill, and it took maybe 5 minutes to climb up it. And we had this long ass toboggan. And so we thought it was a really great idea.
You had an ass toboggan?
Ass toboggan. We thought it was a really great idea to load 4 kids up on this toboggan, right? And so I was in the front, and I had my knees under the curve of the toboggan. And we get going down the hill, and we quickly realize that we're going very fast, like very fast. We didn't really realize that the more weight you put on something, that gets on like snow. And so the parking lot was 30 yards past where the end of the hill was. And we launched down the hill, and we're going towards a old Jeep Cherokee that is a little bit lifted, and 2 of the kids jump off. I'm flying at this thing. I can't get my legs out, and I lean backwards with the other kid, and we go underneath this lifted Jeep Cherokee.
And the 2-man luge the 2-man skeleton was invented.
Oh my God. It was so scary. I thought I was going to lose my face. And my dad thought it was the most amazing thing he'd ever seen in his life, and he would just always tell that story. The time that Nate and his dumbass friends went down this big ass hill. Yeah. So that's a story that gets told about me often. That's a pretty good one. Thanks.
Not bad.
All right.
There you go.
We can wrap up.
Yeah, we really appreciate you all joining us this week, and we hope you join us next week as well. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to let us know your thoughts.
Smash the subscribe button.
Yeah, smash it, poke it, prod it, whatever. Just hit it with your mouse. But yeah, send us your questions and feedback. It's p3sportspod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Let us know if there's some topics you want us to hit.
Take it easy, everyone. Brian, you're going to log off early this time so we can call you names.
That was amazing.
No.
All right, everybody, take it easy. Thanks for listening.
Love you, boys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Later, everyone.
P Cubed Podcast.